everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. Happy Monday on this afternoon show. Shock midfield signing for Manchester United. Just when we thought that Manchester United would be ruled out of getting a midfielder this summer, it looks like Ruben Amorim could have that midfielder that is desperately wanted. But who is it going to be? Advances on Wharton and also Ederson. Two different profiles. And if you're looking for one player for one position, I don't understand how these two profiles fit into the same position, in my opinion, but I'm going to get into that. But Manchester United looking at bringing both of these two players in, yet to decide on who, but this could happen if we start to sell. The magic number, 1st of July tomorrow, outgoings could start to happen, and we have a huge boost in regards to Marcus Rashford as the Nico Williams deal is stalling and it looks like Barcelona could pivot. So Rashford's move could, I'm not saying it is, but it could be fast-tracked, which would massively help Manchester United out. And also some news on Jadon Sancho coming in as well. Get your comments in. There is also a little bit of news on Ekatike, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's anything advanced, anything that's massively groundbreaking. But of course, it's a news show. I will bring it in. But what I will say is I don't think Manchester United are signing Ekatike this window. But the news will continue to come out and we will talk about it. But welcome everybody. Happy Monday. It's a new week and July the 1st is this week. How we're in July already, I have no idea. But I can tell outside it's absolutely boiling here in Manchester. Don't know what it's like wherever you are in the world, but the sun is shining. Everyone's feeling happy. We are looking at a window where Manchester United need to get some business done, and we only have one signing in so far, and that is Cunha. So a midfielder would be massively, massively welcomed. And also get in the comments, where is it on your list of priorities? Because I have this conversation with United fans all the time, and it seems like everyone's unanimous. The fact that a striker has to be our next priority after we get Mbeumo over the line. But then it varies. Some people say they want a goalkeeper next. Some people say they want a wing-back next. But a lot of people have a midfielder to be next on the list. So let me know your thoughts in the comments as well, and I will bring them in to the show. So this is coming in from our very good friend Rob Dawson at the ESPN, and he has said, if Manchester United can boost their budget with incoming transfer fees, there will be a possibility of moving for a midfielder like Ederson or Adam Wharton. Now, our interest in both of these two players dates back a long time. We've been tracking Adam Wharton for a long time, even before he was at Crystal Palace, when he was at Blackburn Rovers. I mean, in hindsight, how much do you wish we moved for him while he was at Blackburn Rovers, by the way? Literally just down the road. And we could have picked him up for a small fee there. Now he's at Crystal Palace. They're going to demand a pretty big fee for him, which makes this deal really tough to do. But a very promising midfielder that looks like he's going to go on to have a top career. Still pretty young. I'll go into the details in a second. But we've wanted him for a long time. We've scouted him for a while. And then Ederson. I mean, it feels like we've been linked to Ederson for the last 2 summers at least. I know Goldbridge is a massive fan of his. I know the scouting department while Erik ten Hag was here always liked Ederson. I know we were very close to moving for Ederson from Atalanta last summer as well. So these two players have been on the radar of Manchester United for a long time. Now, Ruben Amorim has made it super clear, as per reports from The Athletic, that he wants a physically capable, athletic midfielder. He wants a midfielder. And now I saw Mark on the morning show, and he was talking about the fact that realistically Ruben Amorim will struggle to ask for a midfielder this summer because he's chosen to keep Manu, he's chosen to keep Bruno Fernandes. It's Casemiro staying, you can't shift him. Collier, we don't know what his future is. Ugarte is new and only just came in last summer. You know, we still have Mason Mount, who Amorim really likes, so he's going to struggle to ask for a midfielder. But I think Ruben Amorim is well within his rights to ask for a midfielder, and I'll tell you why. First of all, Manuel Ugarte wasn't his signing. I know that he's worked with him before at Sporting, and I know that he does like him, and he likes the player, and he does feel like there's a future for him there at Manchester United. But he didn't actually go out there and sign Manuel Ugarte. That wasn't his signing. Casemiro, he made work last season, but it was very clear when he came in, he didn't see him as the future of Manchester United. He had to resort to using him because Casemiro is a professional and he found a way to make it work, but he wasn't part of his future plans and he doesn't necessarily think he suits and fits his system. but we can't move him on because of his wages and his contract. So that's not his problem either. Collier is a young player who's come through the academy, who this season's probably going to be his make or break. Is he going to make it? Does he need a loan? Mason Mount's more of an advanced midfielder. Bruno Fernandes, I think, is more of an advanced midfielder. Okay, you can say that Ruben Amorim has used him in that pivot and he's probably going to use him for the majority of the time in the pivot next season, but it's his captain and okay, of course you want to be able to keep your best player. Kobbie Mainoo, again, one of the best prospects I think has come out of Carrington in a very long time, hasn't even managed to get to work with him properly yet. He was in and out the team through injuries, was adapting last season. So God forbid he wants to keep two of the best players at the club, Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo. The rest of the midfielders, I don't think you can really say is Amorim's problem. That's Manchester United's problem. They went and signed Ugarte, who I'm not writing Ugarte off, by the way. I do think he's got a future at United, and I think there's levels for Ugarte to go up. But Amorim didn't actually sign him. So everybody else, Amorim's not really had a say in. The only say he's had is, we want to continue with Kobbie Mainoo, and I want Bruno Fernandes to say that's too. So I do feel like Ruben Amorim's well within his rights to ask for a midfielder. This team demands a midfielder with the attributes that can fit some of the profiles that we have. We need a deep line midfielder massively, a deep line physical midfielder that suits Amorim's system. It's a really important part of his system. There's only two midfielders in there, so they've both got to be super, super strong. And I can understand why he wants one. So I can understand that if we manage to get Rashford out, which we've got some news on that I'll bring in throughout the show, we manage to get Sancho out, which Juventus could be happening, I wouldn't hold my breath, but it feels like something's going to give with Sancho within the next week or so, especially with this July 1st date coming up. Anthony as well, there should be interest there. And I know with Garnacho it's going to be a waiting game, but once you sell him, it will be pure profit. And I do think we will be able to sell him. How much for? I mean, we're hoping for around 50 million, aren't we? But I think we'll struggle to get that. But it will still be pure profit. You really can start looking into the midfielder market. You get Toby Collier out maybe on loan, or you decide his future. There is a midfield market there that you can start to look at. I don't know if it will be the Wharton of the world or the Ederson of the world, but they are two prospects that we really, really do like. And I can see us trying to move on if we do manage to get money through the door, which has seemed a little bit far-fetched as of now, but the window, we've still got a long way to go in this window, and once we can get the outgoings going, I wouldn't be surprised if we start working on one of these two deals, as being reported from Rob Dawson at the ESPN. Now, I want to go through these two players, because what I will say about this, absolutely love the fact we're linked to Adam Wharton. Fantastic player. Ederson I'm a little bit sceptical of. I think he's a fantastic profile. I think he's a good player. Don't necessarily think this team requires his profile. I think he's very similar to Ugarte. I'm going to be honest, probably a better version, a little bit more advanced, a little bit more experienced. But I think he's very similar to Ugarte, and I don't know if he would work in that pivot with the likes of Bruno Fernandes. I think there would be a lack of positional discipline in there, but he still is an exciting profile. And I get why we would have scouted him for Amorim's system, where he needs physically capable players, because he is got so much energy and is great physically. But I'm going to go through the two, because they're both options that we could move on. But okay, yeah, they both play in the pivot. They would both play there if they were playing for this Amorim team. They're both deep lying midfielders, but they're both very, very different. And you would have thought you'd be scouting the same sort of profile, not two completely different profiles for the same role. Because there's different types of midfielders for that role, and they are two different types of midfielders. Which side of the fence do you sit on? I mean, let's run a poll, actually, to go throughout this show while I explain it. Would you rather go for Adam Wharton if the money was available, or would you rather go for Ederson of Atalanta if the money was available? And we might sway you when we talk about the different attributes of these players. Frederick says, why isn't Romano ever on the United stand anymore? He's a very, very, very busy man, and we've got a lot of journalists that come on this channel, and Romano might come back on the channel at some point, but he's just very busy in the transfer window, getting all the transfer news. Bisson says, news, PSV won't sign Malacia, one more to sell. Now, I think people are maybe making Malacia into a bigger deal than it is. Yes, we know that signing was a massive, massive failure. Malacia looked so exciting when he first came through. Do you remember when he locked up Salah, he locked up Mahrez, and everyone was saying he could be the next Patrice Evra. And that's an example of how this United fan base can get carried away. But that injury just completely stalled and halted his career, and we are struggling. We are struggling to offload him. But the good news about Malacia is we bought him for, what did we buy him for? Like 12 million-ish? Nothing really in terms of United. We will be able to sell him, and even if we sold him for what, 5-6 million, it'd probably be even on our books, / maybe, we wouldn't lose money on it, so it wouldn't hurt our books in terms of amortisation. So Malacia, although it's frustrating because it's another space in the squad that he's taking up, it's not really going to do damage in terms of FFP, PSR for us, and we just want to move him on. We just want to get him gone, and if we have to, we will sell him majorly on the cheap. And it's actually a big shame about Malacia, because I think that injury massively halted his United career and sort of killed it, and is set him back. I mean, when I found out he was a similar age to Dalot, I was gobsmacked. Like, Dalot just seems so much more advanced than Malacia. Malacia, I still see him as a young kid, but I think, let's actually look at how old Malacia is. Malacia's 25, 26 in August. Like, I still thought he was like 20, 21. And yeah, that injury massively killed his career, but it's not completely damaging to Manchester United, and we will manage to move him on. It'll just be for super cheap. Tony Martial says, no one works in a pivot with Bruno. Ugarte, Ederson, Kobe is a much better pair than any with Bruno. And Tony, I think that's a very fair point. There'll be a lot of people in the chat that think, or, a lot of people that are watching that think Bruno's best position is further advanced. I'm going to be honest, when I was going through Ederson and Wharton and trying to see which one I would prefer and think about both these two players, I did struggle with the fact that Bruno Fernandes, his weakest area, I would say, and don't get me wrong, he has so many strengths that he's shown throughout his United career. But as a deep-lying midfielder, or playing in that pivot, I should say, because he's never really a complete deep-lying midfielder, because Bruno's always roaming. His weakest attribute is positional sense and defensive positional awareness. So you need a midfielder that has absolute top-draw positional awareness, and even still, leaving one man to do it on his own, it's near enough an impossible job. So I will say this, even as the biggest Bruno fan, and you all know how much I have loved Bruno and how much I really do respect him as a player and as a captain of this club. Even as the biggest Bruno fan, I will say this. If Bruno Fernandes is to successfully play in the pivot next season, he will have to change his game. Like, he will. He will have to be more positionally disciplined, or else it just will not work. It just won't. He has to be more positionally disciplined. You cannot, even prime Rodri, you couldn't leave in there on his own. I understand we're playing with 3 centre-backs, so it is a bit more protection. But you want your wing-backs, you don't want your wing-backs tucking in and covering for Bruno. You want your wing-backs flying on. You want your wing-backs flying down the wing, supporting the number 10s. I can just see a picture, Amad and Mbeumo, interchanging, flying down that right wing. And you need Bruno Fernandes. Of course, he can go and get involved, but he needs to be always looking over his shoulder, and he has to be positionally aware, because you want your wing-backs flying forward, and your back three can get caught out if you don't have good positional awareness in front of them in that pivot. They've got to be athletic, and that isn't Bruno's biggest quality either. He's not the most athletic midfielder. Yeah, he's got a big engine on him, but he can get caught out for pace. Sometimes he can have the ball won off him quite easily. So he's gonna need to be very, very intelligent with where he is on the pitch, and when to move forward and when to take that risk and when to stay, because that caught us out in the Europa League final, and he will have to change that. So it's going to be tough. Gideon says, Baleba, go and get him. A lot of people talking about Baleba. Baleba is perfect because he has good positional awareness, and he is an absolute monster in terms of winning the ball back and getting around the pitch and intercepting play. He's a full-on all-rounder, Baleba. But it's going to cost you over 150 million. And we spoke about this on a show the other day, and if you remember the coffee table analogy, it's just not going to happen this summer. Even Wharton, I struggle to see happening this summer. I mean, I was looking on Transfer Market, going through these two midfielders, and on Transfer Market, Ederson is valued at 50 million euros and Adam Wharton is valued at 45 million euros. Now, I think Crystal Palace will want at least 70 million pounds for Adam Wharton. That's what I think they'll want at least. So unless we sell big, that's going to be a struggle. And although Ederson is valued higher than Adam Wharton on transfer market, I think you could get Adam Wharton. I'm getting mixed up now. I think you could get Ederson for around 45 million pounds. Maybe I'm being optimistic there, but I do think you could do that deal with Atalanta. I mean, Atalanta have had our number, to be fair, and they do always get good fees for their players. I mean, look at Rasmus Højlund. You know, we paid him well with add-ons for Ahmad, who I'm very happy we got, but they usually do get good fees for their players, so it won't be the easiest, hence why I have to sell. But who would you want? Get voting in the poll. And I was going through these players, and the two different midfielders in a sense of Wharton is more of a conductor. He controls the midfield. He has great positional discipline. He sits in there. Maybe he's not the most physical, but he's very, very intelligent and he's great technically on the ball. Whereas Ederson's more of, you know, box to box, crashing into the box, a lot of energy, very physical, and is intercepting, high press, and is sort of that, you know, that energy in the middle of the park. Two very different profiles in that sense. And I was just going through the different attributes there. And if you have a midfield pivot of Adam Wharton and Bruno Fernandes, you've got Adam Wharton who's going to cover Bruno positionally, and his intelligence is going to massively help Bruno in terms of, you know, playing to Bruno's strengths of getting forward and having that creative side of the game. But you're going to lack that physicality in there. And if you get caught out, you've got two players that maybe, you know, aren't the most physical type of players, and that's where you're going to get caught. Whereas if you have Ederson with Bruno, you've got the physical side of the game. You know, you can play that high press, quick turnovers, and he's going to be able to break up the play. He's going to be able to carry the ball really well. But you have a situation where that midfield could massively be caught out positionally because Ederson does get forward and so does Bruno Fernandes. And if they're both doing that and you go in for that challenge and you fail to win the ball, you've got that massive gap in behind and a counter-attack flooding in on your back three. And you've got a struggle there and you could really get caught out on the break. So both of them have their weaknesses in that pivot, and some people in the chat would say the weakness is maybe Bruno, and you need a combination of two players that are defensively aware but can also get forward and carry the ball as well. And I can understand that point of view. I really could understand that point of view. But if Amorim thinks Bruno Fernandes can work, I would assume that he's going to work on his game over the summer, and Bruno's going to be that midfielder that, you know, is positionally aware, is dictating. You know, he's great on the ball. And I still remember it. I don't know if you remember it. That season, I think it was under Ten Hag. And it was the season where we were in the FA Cup. Was it quarter-final against Liverpool? It was the 4-3 at Old Trafford, and Bruno was playing centre-back at one point. It was during that season. Bruno played as an 8 as a couple of times, and people were comparing him to Paul Scholes. You know, the long balls he was putting across the pitch, the way he was just kind of sitting in that midfield and dictating the play and picking passes. If Bruno does that, you know, you've got a lot better of a chance, but it's just whether he can do that consistently over a season at his age. I mean, I say at his age because I watch him for Portugal and he's much more disciplined, much more positionally aware. So I do wonder if Amorim's going to have that conversation about kind of changing his role over the summer. And it's not unheard of. Managers do this. I mean, I know it's a completely different player and you know, they're at different points in their career, but Arne Slot did big work on Gravenberch in what he wanted from him for a midfielder, and he was excellent with him. So you can change a player's role when you've got a manager in that's willing to work with that player, but maybe it's me being too optimistic. Turpuk says it was against Everton. Gamebred says it will be Amorim's downfall. I mean, get your votes in the poll, Wharton or Ederson. I've just put my vote in as well. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. So you've got 56% of you would rather go for Adam Wharton and 44% of you would rather go for Ederson. Oh, it's now gone to 55-45. I'll tell you my response now, and it would be Adam Wharton. And I'm not just saying it because the chat are in agreement with me. I'm not just saying it because you guys watching the show want Adam Wharton. I'm saying it because I think he's got higher ceiling. I think he has the capability to be one of the best midfielders in the league, Adam Wharton. And I don't want to, sensationalise it, and I don't want to go over the top. But when I've watched him, I think he looks like he's come through the academies in Spain. He looks like he's come through Barcelona's academy. I mean, the fact he was playing at Blackburn Rovers, and no disrespect to Blackburn Rovers, it's down the road from me. I can't believe we didn't go and pick him up. His level of close control, how good he is technically on the ball, his vision, and the way he can sit in the middle of the park and kind of just scan and see what's going on around him and, anticipate the danger, anticipate what's going to happen next. At 21 years old, I think he is. Let me just go and double check that. Yeah, 21 years old. I think he's a United player, and I think United do have to go there. I think him and Manu would work really well together in a midfield pair, and it's not always going to be Bruno for the foreseeable future. I mean, Adam Wharton's 21, and Bruno Fernandes is what, 31-ish? So, he's got time on his side as well. So it's not always going to be catering to Bruno. And I just think for the longevity of the club and for what Ruben Amorim needs from a midfielder, I think Adam Wharton does have a higher ceiling, and that's why I would go for him. I don't think it would be an instant fix, though. I really don't. I don't think it would be an instant fix. I think you need to give him time. But if you're asking me to pick between them two players, I'd go for Wharton. I also think if you go for Wharton, Balaba's still super attainable. And could you imagine that, having both of them within your squad to kind of pick from and nurture? And you've got two midfielders there that are super young and can be the future of this football club. When you've had issues with your midfield for quite a long period of time, that would be a massive transformation. But whether that'll ever happen, might be living in dreamland. But if United can sell well, you could start to make some sort of progress this summer on that. Emmanuel John says, always bear in mind that British players cost way more than any other players. There is that side of things. There can be English tax, and I mean, with the way we negotiate, it would be a tough ask. I think it would be a tough ask. If this was Chelsea making moves, they'd probably have it done within the week, wouldn't they? But how do we do this, and how do we have the opportunity to do this? You have to sell Marcus Rashford. You have to sell Garnacho. You have to sell Sancho. You have to sell Anthony. You've got to make outgoings. However, we could have a little bit of a breakthrough on Rashford. This deal might be able to be fast-tracked, and we'll bring in that news now. So, this is coming out from Spain. Nico Williams to Barcelona has stalled. The player, through his agent, is demanding written guarantees for his official registration, conditions that Barcelona considers unacceptable at this time. Barcelona's struggles to register Olmo and Victor have raised concerns. Nico Williams does not want to face a similar situation, and he's demanding clear guarantees. In addition, Athletic Bilbao are pressuring him to either stay on or join Bayern instead of Barcelona. Some people within Barcelona still see a move for Luis Diaz as a more viable option than signing Nico Williams. So as I started to, read this report earlier, when I was thinking of bringing it into the show, I was thinking, okay, the Nico Williams deal stalled. Rashford is out in Spain waiting for Barcelona to give him that call. He wants the Barcelona move. We all know that. I mean, my grandma in Turkey knows that Rashford wants to go to Barcelona at this point. It's very well documented. It's out everywhere. He's made it clear he wants to go to Barcelona. So I don't think there'd be any struggles on the negotiating on Marcus Rashford's side of things. We know it's his dream club. Nico Williams stalling does help Rashford because although he's indicated and hinted at the fact he'd play down the middle and he's versatile, and, the nod to Henry and the fact that Lewandowski, isn't the youngest player and he's going into his twilight years, Rashford's probably targeted that area to play, but he is primarily a left winger. So if Barcelona want a versatile forward and they're struggling in negotiations with Nico Williams, Marcus Rashford's right there. You know, left-sided player, also can play down the middle. Hansi Flick's want versatile forwards. And you think, oh, you know, if Nico Williams does decide to pivot to Bayern, or he does decide to stay at Athletic Club, and you know that deal stalls and doesn't happen, Rashford's right there, and they have more money there accessible to go for Rashford. And then you get to the end of the report, and it says some people within Barcelona still see a move for Luis Diaz as a more viable option than signing Nico Williams. And I look at it and I think, Rashford, he's done an interview in Spain hinting at going to Barcelona. I mean, every outlet says, you know, Marcus Rashford wants to go to Barcelona. We keep hearing that Barcelona, you know, like Marcus Rashford. They've been in talks with Rashford. You know, they're touching base with Rashford's camp. You know, they've touched base with Manchester United. Hansi Flick wants a versatile attacker, so don't rule out going getting Marcus Rashford and Nico Williams. However, Barcelona had a clear opportunity to sign Marcus Rashford in January, or even get him in on loan. Didn't bite, didn't go. And then we hear that Marcus Rashford's waiting for it in the summer, and he's willing to wait all the way until the end of the window for Barcelona. But Barcelona do want him, like they're really interested in him. We've heard that Barcelona have been interested in Rashford for, you know, ever since Christmas time. They're going for a left winger. They've tried to go for Nico Williams. Right. Now Nico Williams might not be happening. They want to go for Luis Diaz. Surely, if they like Marcus Rashford so much, why aren't they going for Marcus Rashford? He can play off the left, and he can play up front, and he can even play off the right if you need him to. So if they really like Marcus Rashford, you know, United are desperate to sell him. They're desperate. 40 million. Okay, yeah, his wages are on the heavy side, but Barcelona have paid heavy wages before, and I'm sure Manchester United could come to some sort of compromise. Why aren't they going for him? Why are they trying to go for Luis Diaz instead of him? Why are they trying to go for Nico Williams instead of him? I honestly think that he's not as high up on their list as what's being reported, and I think it's a big push from Marcus Rashford's side and Marcus Rashford's camp to link his name with Barcelona to try and get him that move, more than Barcelona, you know, really trying to go and get Marcus Rashford. Don't get me wrong, I think Barcelona would be interested in Rashford. I think there's a big chance he goes there, and I think they would be open to him joining. But I don't think there's a huge appetite to go and pay money for him. I don't think they want to pay money for him. I think they see him as a good opportunity to maybe get in on loan to bolster their attack and bolster the squad. But I don't think he's a dream signing for them. I don't think they're there, you know, thinking we have to do everything we can to get Marcus Rashford this summer. Because if you really want a player, you go out and get him. And they've had opportunities. They could have got him in January. They could go and get him now. But they're going for other players in his position. That's what doesn't add up to me. So it's difficult. It really is difficult because Rashford wants a Champions League club. Barcelona seem to be the only Champions League club that have been strongly linked to him. But I just can't get my head round the fact that if both parties want this move, why not go for him? He wants to join you, and United wants to do this deal. Why not do it? Is it because they're trying to do it on the cheap with doing this loan that they think Manchester United will be so desperate to take at the end of the window, potentially? But if you really want a player, you just go out and get him, in my opinion. Let me see what some of you guys are saying down in here. We have JD91, Rashford will go to Barca on loan. They won't pay for him. Michael says, Barca have learnt their lesson on paying on high wages. Nedim says, Sesko has started following United on Instagram. Yeah, I saw this before. So Victor Gyökeres wants Arsenal, but Arsenal are prioritising Sesko. And United want Gyökeres, but now Sesko's following United on Instagram. It's very, very, very confusing. I think maybe we're reading into stuff too much. But I will say it now, I really wouldn't be surprised if Manchester United end up signing Benjamin Sesko this summer. I would not be surprised one bit. I think if Arsenal move forward on Sesko, we'll get Gyökeres. I think if Arsenal move forward on Gyökeres, big chance we go and get Sesko because we've been linked to him before as well. Stephen says, Deco's exact words a month ago are, we are not interested in Rashford. They have got interest in Rashford, but it's one of them, like it's an opportunity. It's not one of their priority signings, which is how it's being made out to be a little bit. Javier Hernandez says Rashford needs to realise there is no I in team, but there is an I in pie. There's an I in meat pie. Meat is an anagram of team. I don't know what he's talking about. And what are you talking about? You've lost me on that one. What are you talking about? Kumaran says Amorim will play a diamond midfield with Bruno and Manu. I don't think he will, but you know, you never know. Jacob Fatu says we don't develop talent. Get Ederson. He's ready now. But is Ederson what this team needs? We already have a combative midfielder in Ugarte. Okay, yeah, Ederson's got maybe a few more strings to his bow, better carry of the ball, but they have very similar attributes. Rob Always United says Bruno is too good not to come good, Beth. Yeah, I like that point, to be honest with you. And I see a few people saying Baleba is the midfielder that works with Bruno, and that's why I see you have to have a super specialised midfielder to work with him, and Baleba's just, he's off the cards. I think Caicedo would work super well with him at Chelsea, but Chelsea went and paid big money. Big money, and United don't have that big money to spend right now. We've got Turpluck saying Ederson is better at passing than Ugarte, Beth. I mean, a lot of people are, to be honest with you. Yeah, he is better, but I don't think it's a big enough of a leap to go out there and spend 45, 50 million on him. When Ugarte, I do think, has got attributes and has shown good moments, and under Amorim can develop. I'd rather go for the profile of Wharton. That's my opinion, but of course you're entitled to yours. I think Goldbridge will probably come on here and say Ederson. That's the beauty of football. Everyone has different opinions. Aluni says if we have Manu Kone, should play for Roma and French nationals team, I'd put him with Bruno in the pivot. Are you talking about a player plays for Roma, or are you talking about Kone, who is in our academy there? I can't quite work it out, but thank you for your super chat. I will say that Kone in our academy, Sekou Kone, looks really promising. He looked promising on that postseason tour. Looks like he's going to go out on loan, so hopefully we can develop him a little bit more. But sometimes people get super invested into these academy talents, and don't get me wrong, he's a talent, but you try and get him up to speed before they're actually ready, and you've got to let them develop, and you can't rush them. You know, if Amorim's going to have a big look at the academy this summer, and if they're ready, great. But I don't think we can rely on that. We have to kind of look in the transfer window as well. Let me just bring in what I was going to go through before, but we kind of got a little bit carried away. So I wrote down the different attributes between these players. So Wharton's role, deep lying playmaker, dictates the tempo. Ederson, box-to-box midfielder, more of a ball winner, a big engine in the midfield. On the ball, Wharton, great passing range, he's got great vision, good at progressive passes, and he's just very simple in the way that he keeps the ball ticking. You have Ederson, more of a ball carrier, drives forward, is very direct and very sharp. Defensive style, so you have Wharton, who's got positional intelligence, cuts off the passing lanes. He's good at putting in the tackles, but he more relies on his intelligence to kind of sit in the middle of the park and scan to look for danger. You have Ederson, who has aggressive pressing, you know, great at winning the ball back in the middle of the pitch and can work up and down that pitch like it's nobody's business. Super aggressive, and has got a big engine on him. Physically, Wharton is very composed, you know, he's good technically on the ball, he uses that to his advantage. You know, he's still a tall, you know, he's got a good physique, he can still hold his own in that midfield. But you have Ederson, who's more of an athletic build, more robust and quicker at getting around the pitch. And then, you know, you kind of gets into the age and the experience of these players. Wharton's 21. You know, he's got less top flight experience, but he's Premier League proven. Then you have Ederson, who's 25. Still, you know, a great age, you know, about to go into his prime. More experience, established at a very high level in Europe. So you've got to... That's the one thing I wanted to just come back to there before I kind of wrap this up is I'm buzzing that we're looking at midfielders. I do think it's an area we need to improve. However, if we do spend on the midfield this summer, it has to be on the right profile. We can't afford to spend another 50 million on a midfielder that just is not up to scratch. We need an elite midfielder. Like Ugarte, good squad player. You know, if we're competing at the high level in the Premier League, I think he's a good squad player to have. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a starter. Might prove me wrong. He cost us, what was it, 50, near enough 60 million? In hindsight, we overpaid. We did overpay. I don't regret the signing. I like him. And like I say, you know, some people get carried away with your words. But if we're going to spend a big chunk of money on a midfielder again, it has to be the right profile. It has to be someone elite. And as much as I'm happy about these two profiles being scouted, if we're only signing one player, it concerns me slightly that the two very different profiles for the same position. And surely we should know, if we have a plan, like we've spoken about, Barad has spoken about the plan we have, you know, working with Amorim, they're all, you know, in cohesion in the way that they want to work. They're all on the same page as to what the plan is. Surely they know the profile of midfielder they want to bring in. Surely they know whether they want to go for a technically composed deep line midfielder or a high energy, workaholic, you know, box-to-box midfielder, ball winner in the middle of the park. Surely they know that. So that's the only thing that concerns me a little bit. But the poll on which one you would sign is 55% Adam Wharton and 45% Ederson as well. Mancunian says, overpaid for Ugarte. We didn't, and he didn't play bad last season. Wharton is also not better than Ugarte. They're different players, but Wharton is better than Ugarte. He is better. And I do think we overpaid for him. I don't regret the signing, like I said. I like the player. I think, you know, considering he came into a season where, you know, the manager got sacked, which probably worked in Ugarte's benefit, to be honest. I don't think Ten Hag was using him properly at all. And, you know, we had such an up and down season as a new young player. I think people forget. Ugarte is what, 23, I think? So I think he did all right. But I do think we overpaid. Alioni says, Kone that plays for Roma. I have to look into that one a little bit more. I mean, I can't believe there's people that think that. I can't believe there's people in that are watching that think that Ugarte is better than Wharton. But, you know, each to their own. Like I said, it's all about opinions. But look, I'll leave it there. That is where Manchester United are at. Let me just check there's nothing I've missed, because I did have a few notifications in. So I wanted to check there was no news that I've missed. I tell you what, we won't have missed an Mbumo here we go, because that, honestly, that has been going on and on and on and on. And as soon as that happens, I mean, I feel like throwing a party. I genuinely feel like throwing a party for it, because that has been a long time coming. I mean, I know it's going to happen, that deal, but wow, we have sucked a lot of the fun out of that. Here we go. But it's not that. Just kind of double checking here that there's nothing I have missed. Just a little bit on Jadon Sancho, actually, that I wanted to bring into the show, and I won't go into details because we have, you know, we've talked about Jadon Sancho over and over and over again. But this is what's coming out here. And with Jadon Sancho, it's very small little updates. And it's coming in that Jadon Sancho is still of interest to Juventus, but his wage demands remain a concern. Man United may contribute to covering part of it. At the moment, there isn't much competition, but Juventus need to free up space in the squad. And that's coming from an Italian outlet there. So Juventus, we know they're interested in Sancho. We know they'd pay 25 mil. They're not going to pay 300 grand a week. So it's whether United decide to pay off some of that wage, whether we can afford to do that. United probably just want to bide time a little bit to see if anyone else comes forward before they do compromise on money they could potentially make on that deal. But Juventus know that there's not a herd of clubs flocking to go and sign Jadon Sancho. They're not in a rush with that one. So they'll wait themselves to get the best possible deal. So we'll see. Some people have said Douglas Luiz over both Ederson and Wharton. Wharton would be my top pick, to be honest, but Douglas Luiz, Premier League proven player that would improve us. Like I said, you know, belabour the elite coffee table. Might have to wait till next summer, but we can still get a very, very good midfielder in this window if we have the money to do so. That can take us that little step. Maybe not from there to right at the top, right at the elite, you know, but can be a good building block towards that and can do us well for the future of next season. But look, Pete Phillips says, Basically, Wharton equals Carrick and Ederson equals Fletcher. I mean, Carrick and Fletcher, two fantastic Manchester United midfielders. So, you'd have to wait for them to earn that comparison, but I can understand where you're coming from. But look, thank you everyone for watching. I really do appreciate all the comments, all the super chats. Smash a like on the video if you haven't already. Let's hope we get some big news this week. I want an Mbumo, here we go. I want to know that it's actually officially happening. And let's see if we can get some outgoings moving. That's what I'm on the lookout for this week. Garnacho updates, Rashford updates, Anthony updates, Sancho updates. Let's get moving. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will see you on the next one.